Hello, and welcome to the Student Ministry Conversations podcast with your hosts, Brent Aiken, David Pruitt, and Russell Martin. This podcast is all about equipping, encouraging, and inspiring youth pastors weekly with topics that are brought to the table by youth pastors from all over the world. And now, here's your host for this week, Brent Aiken. Hey, and welcome to the podcast. If this is your first time listening to us, we want to welcome you and invite you over to our website, studentministryconversations.org, where you can find all of our previous episodes, show notes, blog articles, and our goal is that you're inspired, encouraged, and the things that you hear on this podcast can equip you to be a better student pastor for the church that you're serving in. Today, we are sitting down with Micah Marshall, and Micah is one of the pastors over Refuge Youth Ministries, and honestly, it's kind of a cool little thing that Micah's got going. So I want him to definitely share into that as far as what exactly he's a part of. And then we'll get into our topic. But first, Micah, why don't you just tell us who you are, where you are, what you're doing, and, what our topic is.
All right, man. Hey, Brent, thank you so much for having me on today. I appreciate it. I just appreciate, too, our new relationship and friendship we developed over the last several days, being able to talk youth ministry stuff. But I am in central Pennsylvania, specifically a place called Altoona, Pennsylvania. Our claim to fame is we're about 45 minutes from Penn State University. So any of those big PSU Nittany Lion fans, we're about 45 minutes from there, 2 hours from Pittsburgh. And I have been serving in youth ministry for 15 years, 12 of them here in central Pennsylvania with Refuge Youth Network, which I am the executive director and founder of. And basically, Refuge is a nonprofit organization that assists churches that can't afford youth pastors. And we go out and we raise funds, we network, we do all this stuff just to be able to reach out in the community. And so rather than youth pastoring a specific church, we kind of youth pastor a region of central Pennsylvania. And I'm blessed to have 5 other people on staff with me that kind of just help make this whole thing work and go around. And it's just been an incredible journey. But the journey has been a journey of faith. It's been a journey of ups and downs. There's been I talked to someone yesterday. We talked about there's been a lot of victories, but there's been also a lot of failures. We love to talk about our victories. We don't oftentimes talk about our failures, but we claim both. I will definitely take ownership of both of them because I think that's what makes the journey worth it. And you can see where you failed and where you should have used wisdom, where you should have listened to the Lord and the Holy Spirit. But it's been absolutely incredible. But the topic that we're going to talk a little bit about is the financial part of youth ministry.
Yeah.
Because we know that is a big thing.
Yeah, and as I was telling you before we started, it's like it never ceases to amaze me the number of times that I get on a podcast and I'm like, wait, why have we never done an episode on this before? Because I think especially the financial part of just running a youth ministry, and in this regard specifically just the fundraising aspect of it, it's like, this is like episode 137, I think. And it's like, how on earth have we not done an episode on fundraising yet? Because that is like the lifeblood of most youth ministries' summer activities where they sponsor kids to go to camp and they might even sponsor some of their own salary depending on the church. Who knows? Yeah. And so there's so many different things that come into it. But I think that there's also I think it's something that we don't take a lot of time and research into, and we're just always like, hey, what's an easy way to make a lot of money? And so it might be an interesting conversation to have. And I guess the question to kind of start it off is, when we approach fundraising, should we have like a certain mindset when we're, I guess, is there more to fundraising than just, hey, how can I make the most money? Like, what are you trying to achieve with fundraising?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, and I can only speak for me personally with our ministry. When we're running, for years when I first started, we were running about 180 kids, and I only had a youth budget of $200 a month. That was it. So that is like, that's crazy. That's what I had. But a month, I got $200 a month. That's what the church could afford to give. That was it. And I had 180 to 185 kids that I'm navigating back and forth.
5 loaves, 2 fish scenario, man.
Right. And so, and I was like, obviously I was like, I got to figure out how to get some more money. We got to figure out how to do this, because the big thing too is a lot of our kids that attend Refuge Youth Network are coming from lower income, middle to lower income, classes. And so they don't really have the money to do the stuff that we'd always like to do in youth ministry. So that kind of brought me to that, to that point of the first question is, okay, if I'm going to do fundraising, how do I do this effectively? What is going to be worth my time? What is going to be worth my effort? Because don't get me wrong, I have done like, hey, we could do a car wash and we can make all this money and da 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 da. And then like you go to do the car wash, it rains on that Saturday, you get like $50 and like you didn't even make any money. And so I have been there. I mean, and it really is. But the real root of it is, I think, kind of stemmed from everything like what you look at your ministry, what you look at your life, maybe your finances at home, is what number one, what is the goal that I'm raising these finances for? What is the purpose? What is the purpose of what we're doing this? For us, it was, I need more operating costs for the kids that I serve. So that directly gives me a target goal to shoot for. And I think a lot of times we just want to be like, well, what makes the most money? Well, that's good to make money, but what makes the most sense? What is the purpose of what you're doing? And so figuring out the purpose of what you do and being able to say, okay, now what do I do to take these steps towards this purpose? I was really blessed to be able to have someone that came on staff with me, named Ryan Alden, who was with me for years. And he was like a fundraising guru. And so he taught me the ins and outs of all of this stuff. Has his background in business, but I worked with nonprofits, and he would always, what's the goal, Micah? What is the goal? And not the financial goal, but what is the goal of why we're doing this? And once you begin to figure out that first piece of, okay, why am I doing this? What is the need? Then you can begin to put the steps in to get to that point, to put a plan into action.
Yeah, that's good. And I really think that that's something that we miss a lot of times when we're thinking about stuff like that, because it's more of like a, hey, I mean, we just wanted to get in and get out and like hopefully make some money in the process. And I know, especially for me, I hate fundraising. Fundraising is
Oh
probably my
yeah.
least favorite thing to do, because like I don't like asking other people for things. I don't like asking for money, and so it's a big problem for a lot of people. But why do you think that stigma is there?
Well, I think you just said it. I think that there's a level of like we don't like to ask people for stuff, and I had to get over that. I had to get over that myself, because my whole thing was, is this a pride thing, Micah, where you're just too prideful to ask for help? Because if God has available resources out there and all people need you to do is ask, why aren't you doing that? And, one of the things I like to talk about is, the worst thing that will happen if you are going to ask people for money, or you're going to try to come up with a plan to get money, the worst thing that someone will say to you is no. And no doesn't change your circumstance.
Yeah.
It doesn't change anything at all. But a yes does. A yes will change things. And so you have to be willing to go out there and say, okay, I have a 50-50 chance that someone's going to say yes, that this is going to be a successful thing, that I can go out in my community and I could say, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? Can we raise some finances this way or that way? And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But you have to be willing to get over yourself, and you have to be willing to say, okay, this is for the kids that I serve. The resources are available. So I need to be able to go out and just be obedient and asking and say, okay, like, can you partner with us? Can you give us monthly? Can we use your parking lot? Can we do a barbecue here? Can we do this? Can we do that? Because no should not be intimidating to us, but yet we're so cautious to always ask. And it's just like, you'd be surprised the people that are willing to pour into you and give to you if you just would simply ask them. There are great people in the world, in their community, probably in your community right now, that are just willing and looking to like, hey, we got some money we need to spend. We got some grant money we need to do something with. We got this, we got that. And so being able just to say, okay, all I have to do is ask. Don't allow your pride to keep you from asking for those resources.
Yeah, that's good. And I think a lot of that comes into play of like, I know especially in with my kind of dealings with fundraisers, a lot of times we do things to get money, but there's really not an explanation of why, like you said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big deal, and that's one of the things we're trying to kind of change here is we do one fundraiser a year. It's really not much of a fundraiser, which is why we've changed it so much. But it was one of those things. It was like, instead of our church viewing this as a fundraiser, I want them to see this as an opportunity for them to be served by our youth program, for
Hmm.
them to learn more about our youth program, for them to see and experience what's going on. And the thing is like when you create that buy-in, when you create that notion of like investment, for lack of a better word, like
Hmm.
that's the ticket. Like people will, especially I think it's our age, that was, or maybe a little bit younger, that was titled the Kickstarter generation,
Yeah.
where it's like they put money where they believe. And so like a lot of times if we want parents or if we want people in our church to put money towards something, we have to give them something to believe in. And I think a lot of times we just kind of skimp on that, and be like, oh, well, it's for the church. It's like, well, that's great, but the church does a lot of things. Like, what
Yeah.
specifically do you need money for?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
kind of walk us through your process of, I know yours is a little different because it also does your operating budget, but like, what is your process on how y'all fundraise? And I guess what's your direct approach? And I guess your
Hmm.
dreaming of what you need, you're planning on how to get it, and then actually executing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's let me just kind of reverse back to what you were just talking about. It's so important that you're able to cast the vision of what you do. People want to know what they're giving to. They want to know what the goal is, and so always being very upfront with, hey, like this money. We do a big fundraiser in March and April, and it's always it's the envelope fundraiser. I don't know if you've ever done that. I don't know if many people know this. So we do the envelope fundraiser 1 through 100, but we do that at 4 churches and online. That's the equivalent of 25 grand coming in if you all the envelopes are taken,
Yeah.
and that basically that runs our whole camp, right? But again, in order to do that, we have to let people know, hey, this specific fundraiser is going to our camp and our summer programming for everything that we do. Hey, this specific fundraiser that we're doing here on Thursday night, this is going specifically so that our kids can, have costs cut for camp, so they're not having to pay $300; they only have to pay 150. This is going like be very direct with where you are going to put your money and let people know this is where it's going. Because again, people will give. Like if you might have some people that will give to a sports part of your program. If you run something that's sports related, they're going to give to it. If you do like a jacket or a clothing drive, people are going to give to that. There are people that give to specific needs because they connect with their hearts. The more specific you are, the more people are going to be willing to give to that because they understand where it's going. And so for us, when we are looking at a project, let's say summer camp, we're looking at summer camp, we are looking to say, okay, how many do we roughly take? What is the ultimate cost at camp costs? Okay, so it's 250 a kid. What is that going to look like if we take 100 kids? Okay, how do we cut that $150 to $75 to charge the kids that can come? They have to. I believe that I believe certain things can be free, but I believe that there always needs to be a buy-in from a kid. I
Yeah.
believe there always needs to be skin in the game, some type, some way. And so, if camp's $150 or $300, we try to bring it down to at least half of that so the kids can pay that half, and then we fundraise the other half. But
Sure.
have the goal in mind, know what you need, know how much you need, formulate like, okay, how are we directly going to communicate this in best way possible so that people know? And then it's all about how you talk about it, right? So like, let me give you an example, Brent. If I were to come to you and say, "Hey, man, I need like 150 bucks. Would you give me some money so I could take a kid to camp?" Or would it be better if I said, "Hey, Brent, I would love for you to partner with us. We're going to be taking kids to camp this year, and a lot of our kids don't have the finances to be able to do this. Would you consider partnering with us and being a sponsor to help us send this kid to camp? Because what your money is going to go to is a life-changing experience of this kid's life. They're going to be away. They're going to get to do things they've never done before. But we would love for you to partner with us."
Yeah.
That sounds a whole lot better,
Take my
a whole
money,
lot better
man.
than,
Take my
hey,
money.
yeah, right? Well, and that's the thing. So a lot of fundraising has to do with how you talk about what you talk about.
Sure.
Being able to allow people to know that they're partnering with you and they're a part of what you're doing. Now, some people will just write the check. Yeah, but when you can tell people, hey, you're in on this with us. You're doing this with us. This is a cooperation of us doing this. A lot of times then when people can hear that, they'll buy into that because they realize they're a part of it. So for us, we're getting ready for summer camp. We cast the vision, we figure out the finances, we speak directly to people about where their money's going, and we ask them to partner with us in what we're doing. Then we come up with the execution. Then we go actually do it, whatever it might be, the envelope fundraiser. We really don't do a lot of like your typical fundraisers. So we're not out there selling brownies or cookies or spaghetti dinners or anything like that. I really have a rule. If we're not going to make over $1,000 in the fundraiser, we're not going to do it because it's not worth the time that we're going to put into it. And a lot of times when you get into some of these fundraisers, you have to have an investment that you're putting up. And if I'm going to put up $500 only to make another $500, that's just not really going to connect with me. And so, you got to be smart and use wisdom in what you're doing. And so, and then you got to know who you're asking. You got to know your audience. There's the church audience and there's the community. You got to know where you're asking because this is what we do, Brent. We do this all the time. We double dip. And what I mean by that, we're always going to the same well for the same money. So we're always going to the same church people. We're always going to, Sister Susie or Bishop Bart, and we're always asking them for money, because we know that they have it. We know that they're well off. And so when you continually tap the well will eventually go dry. So you need to be able to quit asking your church all of the time for the money and say, okay, how do I do a fundraiser for my community so that number one, my community can know who I am. Number two, we can raise money through our community.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's real good. No, and so I definitely think there's a lot of value there. And the thing is, I think more than anything, especially in all of the conversations I've had over the years with different people doing fundraisers or people asking, and I'm a part of most of the Facebook groups online for youth pastors, and it's always like, what's your fundraiser that's made the most money? It's like, well, that is incredibly out of context. Like, you have to understand that, like, you have to be the one that's putting in the effort. And so it shouldn't be like what fundraiser did the best. It should be, what was your policy? What was your practice? What was your planning that made the fundraiser that you did a success? Because it's not like car washes just automatically make $1,000. It's not like you can just do a cake auction or something like that and make 15 or anything like that. It doesn't work like that. And so like you said, it has to be in the right context. It has to have the right time frame. That's another one.
Mm-hmm.
We typically try to very, very much spread out our what moments that we ask people for money, because we've had a couple seasons in our church where it's been like, we have 5 different fundraisers and we notice they're all in November and December. And it's like, whoa,
the worst time.
Exactly. On top of it being the worst time, we're asking them for money for 5 different things going on. It's like, we need to spread these things out. Let's move this one to February. Let's move this one to the summer. Let's do and like, just try to allow a little breathing room in between what you're doing. And so, our youth group does a fundraiser in late April. Our 4th and 5th graders do a fundraiser in October. And we try to do those as far spaced out as possible on purpose for the sake of, we don't want to, like you said, continue asking the same people and allow the well to run dry. For the sake of, sometimes if you just have everything on top of each other, A, it's not going to be as effective, and B, like, eventually they're going to get tired of giving, depending on the person. So I feel like I'm going to be in a, like, puddle of hot water if I don't ask this question, though. What is your well, I don't want to say most successful, because I don't want to ask that question. What is your favorite fundraiser you've ever done? And then
we do a thing called,
well, I'm to counteract that with, what was your least favorite fundraiser that you've ever done too?
I will tell you, the least favorite is the least favorite across the board is a spaghetti dinner fundraiser. I hate that crap. Like, you're asking people, hey, you want to get like some spaghetti and a meatball on a styrofoam plate with a dinner roll that's like a baseball. And it's just like, no, like, people don't want to pay $25 for your plate of spaghetti after church, man. They don't want to do that. So stop. Yeah. Do things with quality, and that's a big thing for us, is when we do things, we want to do things right. And so our biggest and best fundraiser that we do, we call it the night of celebration. And so it's the night of celebration, and it's a benefit dinner that we do. We do ask for money leading into it, but in order for us to be able to do it, there's a process that needs to happen. And number one is we have to really process, okay, like what are we going into? What's our theme going to be? So 2 years ago, our theme was Hawaiian theme. We did like a luau type theme. Everybody wore flowered shirts. This past year, we did a celebration of our local schools that are all part of Refuge. And so we had signs made. But what I did is I went out into the community with people that I know love what we do. And I had one sponsorship level and I asked for $500. And so what I did is I went around to several businesses. I said, "Hey, we have our night of celebration coming up. It's going to be in September. Would you consider giving $500 as a sponsor to this? We'll put your name on the screen. We'll thank you. We'll put your name on the table. Tell everybody you're sponsored by it. But would you be willing to do this?" And what you got to understand is that your community will buy into you and they will give to you when they believe in what you do. And so a lot of times we have this threat of going and asking the community, "Hey, will you do this? Will you do that?" Listen, I eat at the same Mexican restaurant all the time. I visit the same coffee shop all the time. I do all these different things. That Mexican restaurant is giving me a donation. That coffee shop is giving me a donation. The guys that I work out with at the gym and that are in my class, they're giving me a donation because they all know what I do. They're hearing about what I do. So let me just kind of pivot to the side real quick with this. Like when your community knows you and knows what you do, they'll buy into you. So you give to your community, they'll give back to you. When they see you actively working with kids in your community and doing things to make their lives better, they will sow into that, whether they are believers or not. And this is my belief system. If God can redeem lives, he can redeem money. So when I have a CBD store and a bar wanting to sponsor cabins for camp, I'm going to take their money. I'm going to take their money 100%.
Yeah.
Because God redeems these things. But let me get back on track here with what you were asking. So I go out there and I ask them to sponsor. I try to get at least 10 to 12 500 level sponsors. I get one of the best caterers in our city to come in and cater so that the food is going to be exquisite because you want people to remember that. And then I'm going to have my team and we're going to cast vision. We're going to talk about the kids. We're going to play some video testimonies of what has happened in the year. And the whole night is built around a concept of celebrating all of the ministry that has been done in the past years and being able to celebrate the kids, the workers, the staff, and everything like that. And then at the end of the night, we are going to ask, "Hey, we would love for you to be able to donate and give monthly to us." And so you have an opportunity to throw a monthly aspect out there. But let me just say this. Do not ask for monthly sponsors until you talk to your senior pastor first. Because you don't want to, we're a nonprofit organization and we became that in 2017. So people knew that they were giving to us. But before that, it was kind of sticky. I had to navigate those waters a little bit with the finances because there were people that started giving to our church specifically for our youth ministry, not for the whole entire church.
Yeah.
So make sure you come up with a financial plan with your senior pastor if you're going to go down this road.
Yeah.
But so at the benefit, ask for monthly sponsors. And look, for some of these companies out there, even small mom and pop shops, it's nothing for them to be willing to give you $50 to $100 a month. That's nothing for them.
Yeah.
Major places, some of those major places, it's nothing for them to give you $250, $300, $400 a month to be able to do what you do. But again, you do not have because you do not ask. Go out there, ask, present a strong presentation of your ministry, allow people to know what it is, allow people to see it, and have that night of celebration that people can be a part of.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good. And I like how you definitely don't skimp on the evening. I feel like, especially with your spaghetti at dinner comments, a lot of times it's like, yeah, very much like, oh, hey, like this is the afterthought. Like make sure you grab your to-go box of food on your way out of church. And like, you don't hear about it. You don't see any of the kids, anything like that. And it's like, well, why are you, what are you doing? When you build that opportunity, I love how you said you spent the night celebrating the year. Because I mean, what a greater, like, I don't think there's a greater way to like build that investment that people want. They want to spend money on things that they feel that they can get behind. And when you're like, hey, this year we had 25 kids give their life to Christ. We had 30 get baptized. We had 47 go to camp, whatever. Like that, those are crazy numbers, and those are what people want to hear. And so when we don't allow that to be in the conversation for fundraisers, I really feel like you're missing a vital part of why people invest in the first place. And so
Hmm.
when you don't do that, like you're not only are you missing out on opportunities to be better at what you're doing, because as you said, I fully believe that we need to put our best foot forward. And another thing that we do, especially with it being a youth pastor thing, and like our youth, our youth literally serve the entire night. They help
Yes.
cook the food. They are waiters and waitresses at all the tables. We print out menus, and they have to write down orders and fill orders and take their orders back. We have people that walk around with pitchers of tea and water. It is like they are going to a restaurant at our church, and they are not going to have to get up at all the entire evening because they are going to be waited on hands and foot. And so I think that's
Yeah.
a very, very
People rem-
big, important thing.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
people want to they will remember the experience,
Yeah.
right? And that's what you want to give them. You have them for an hour and a half, 2 hours, give them the best experience that you could possibly give them. Give them the testimonies, give them the stories, give them the facts. Make sure you have resources available for like if people want to know what to do and how to give, make sure, and what we do is we always give something away. We always have something that we give to the people that show up. So the last several years, we have a guy that shows up. He does gourmet almonds, gourmet nuts, cinnamon, cashews, does all that stuff. He does bubba tea. He does all that. And we just, that is our gift to them. Hey, take this, like enjoy this. And that has become our big thing. We've done it 2 years in a row, and people will literally say, Micah, I can't wait to come because I know the food's going to be good and the nut guy is going to be there. I'm like, yeah, the nut guy will be
The
here. Like
nut
he'll be here. I
guy. I love it.
promise. They call it that. Yeah, the nut guy. He'll be here in his bubba tea and rolled ice. He did rolled ice cream this year. But we give them that experience, and then we also highlight, and we do a student of the year. We do 4 students or 2 students, depending on that year, and we highlight them. We do a little video thing of them. We talk about their accomplishments. We have them come up. We give them an award there. We invite them and their entire family to come to the benefit and what we do. And so again, you got to be able to allow people to walk with you through what you're doing, not
Yeah,
just
that's good.
telling them, hey, this is, you give me your money and we'll just no. Like Refuge, we have a leadership principle that I just drill into our leaders, our volunteers. As we lead among, not above. Our leadership is among, not above. I would rather walk with someone and show them the way than bark orders and tell them the way. When I'm walking with you, you can journey on that with them. And so as that night progresses, you're on that journey with them, being able to lead with them and go through with them. And so it's an amazing thing to be able to do. But that would be our probably our most effective one. The easiest one that we do is the envelope fundraiser. I mean, it's seriously the most easy thing that you could do. You set up a table 1 through 100, have people take that, they come back, they put a cash or check in it. You just explain. We do videos, video announcements. We explain, hey, there is our table out there. We'd love for you to give. Da 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 da. It's going to this. It's going to that. That is by far the easiest way to make about 3 or 4, maybe $5,000 if all of them go through. That's probably the quickest and easiest. If people are listening to this and say, hey, I need something quick and easy, that probably is it. But I encourage people, man, give a night of celebration. Be able to kind of pour into that, because you do that, and then your church knows what's going on, your board knows what's going on, your elders, the community members. If you have monthly donors, maybe even your pastor might not even know half the stuff that's been happening in your youth ministry. And so this is a way to be able to allow them to be informed of everything you're doing.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really, really good. And I think that's something that a lot of people hopefully listening to this can kind of take and be like, oh, maybe I do this well, or maybe this is something that, man, I've really kind of treated this as the back burner of my ministry. And this is something that kind of needs to be not necessarily at the forefront, because I believe that the forefront always needs to be the gospel, but maybe it needs to be a little farther up in the totem pole than the back burner, just for the sake of, I mean, this is investing in your students. This is ultimately giving
Mhm.
your students the opportunities to do those life-changing moments and opportunities. Because I don't think any youth pastor would argue about the power of camp. I don't think any youth
Yeah.
pastor would argue about the life change that can happen on mission trips and stuff like that. But those all cost money. And if you
Yeah.
don't have the budget in your church, which I would say most churches don't, to scholarship almost all of your kids or at least pay for part of them, then fundraising has to be in the mix somewhere. So this is an investment of some of the greatest moments of probably students' lives and most impactful out at camps and mission trips all fall back to your fundraising and how effective you are with it. And so it's a really, really big thing to think about. But I would challenge you, just like Micah did, maybe it's time to put a little more thought into why you fundraise instead of how you fundraise. Anything else to kind of throw at us, Micah? I mean, obviously, I think there's more, but whatever.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I just think that, you know, it can't, I think fundraiser is always an afterthought, right? Or it's a late thought that comes into the game. And I think that needs to be changed. I think, like you said, it needs to become somewhat of a priority anytime that you're planning any event. What is this? We try to do everything here at Refuge. We try to do everything as cost effectively for our kids as possible. So, meaning I am never trying to make money off of my kids. I'm not trying to make money off my kids. I'll make money other ways in the community. I'll make money doing like cleanups with them, things like that, but I'm not trying to make money off of them. So if camp's, $200, I'm not charging them an extra $100 so that we can pocket it in that. I need to be able to be responsible enough with what I'm called to do to be able to say, okay, the wisdom got to kick in and say, okay, we have a big event coming up in 6 months. What do I do? Begin to prepare for that. Don't allow it to be an afterthought. Don't allow it to be a late thought that's coming in the game with 2 minutes left. And, you want to be able to walk this out. And the cool thing is when you begin to think this way, Brent, and you begin to process things this way, then it becomes a habit. You just do it all the time. So anytime we have an event coming up, what do I need to do to raise money? What do I need to be able to do to have this happen? And again, asking for donations, asking for partnerships, asking for monthly donors and what you can do, all that type of stuff that is there. It's all dependent on you. It's dependent on you. If you're a lazy youth pastor, then you're not gonna make it. You're always going to be just, trying to pinch a penny here and there and have, a half done youth ministry that has no high quality in what you do. But if you are able to be driven as the individual, as the leader, if you have the drive to be able to say, I want the best for my kids, then you make it happen. Make it happen.
Yeah.
Be able to do it. Be able to go out there and grind. I have a very hard time with, the youth ministry always getting the leftovers from everything else. I do not believe in that model. I think it's trash that it'll always be like, we'll give. And what I mean by that is all of the leftover things that we don't do things high quality. We get the leftovers of everything. Well, here's this, here's that. Like, no, like I don't want the non-brand soda. Give me the Coke, give me the Pepsi, give me the Mountain Dew. I don't want Dr. Thunder. Give me Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
I want to be able to do things the right way for my kids, because a lot of my kids aren't getting high quality. They're not getting the best of the best. And so if I'm responsible for them in this season of life, I want to be able to do what I need to do, what I'm called to do at the best way that I can do it. But it's totally up to me to make that happen.
Yeah, no, that's real good. And I think there's a lot of things to take from that. And honestly, most of the stuff that we've talked about with this fundraiser conversation, all of it is, it can go beyond fundraising. In everything you do, you should be trying to strive to put on your best for what you're doing. And the thing is like, if you have a half-hearted youth ministry, like you said a little bit ago, you're not going to find or do much progress for the sake of, if you're half-heartedly showing people to Jesus, it's going to be not as effective as you intentionally thinking through and praying about it and being all in on your approach to how you're doing things. So that opportunity of buy-in and that opportunity of going all out for any event that you have is really, really important, or even any like focus that you have is super important. So, Micah, if for the youth pastor that might be listening to this and maybe they're in a new youth ministry, or maybe they really haven't ever
Mhm.
really had to do fundraisers, what would be your challenge to them more than anything? And what, if you had a tidbit of advice to start with, what would it be?
Well, I would just see, I like again when it comes to the whole fundraising thing, have forward thinking, be thinking in the future, be thinking of what is coming and what is happening, develop a plan, and don't be afraid to ask. Those would be my three things. Is that you really got to make sure that you are ready to do this, you're ready to go. And again, I love new youth pastors who come in, and I love rookie youth pastors that are just starting, because they're not jaded.
Yeah.
They're not, they're not. And like, I always joke around with people and say, youth pastors, we age in like dog years, right? Like, it's like that's kind of how we
Yeah.
do things. And sometimes things can become stale, but if like you're brand new to this and you're loving it, like, allow that passion to continue to drive you each and every day in what you're doing, because it is a joy to serve. It's a joy to be in youth ministry. It's For some of us, this is a seasonal thing. For some of us, this is a life thing. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
We're not using youth ministry as a stepping stone. That's not what this is. This is the call.
Yeah.
But I would just encourage them, like, be able to have that plan, be able to just ask, and not be afraid of no, because no doesn't change anything, but yes does change it. And so that's what I'd be willing to do. And if anyone is listening and says, hey, like, I'd love to talk to you more, they can reach out to me. My email is micah@refugeyouth.network.org. I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, Micah Marshall. Our ministry is called Refuge Youth Network. We would love to be able to connect with you. And Brent, if you don't mind me just throwing this out there, our website, we have free games, free curriculum, free hacks. I do have some fundraising hacks available on our website, refugeyouth.network.org, that you can go to, you can check out, you can see. All you got to do is put an email in, and then you'll be able to download all of our stuff that we have available. But we have it out there, and we have our Refuge Youth Network document that you can download as well, that explains how we got to where we are. But a lot of that is based in community principles, community relationship, and fundraising. So I'd encourage anybody to check that out.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that was going to be the last thing that I asked you, is just how people can contact. So as he said, find him on social media, reach out to him on email. All of his contact information will be in the show notes that are found on our website. But man, Micah, what an awesome conversation. What a great opportunity to talk about something. And honestly, another topic that we have never actually had an episode on in the history of student ministry conversations. So thank you for picking this topic and for having the passion behind it. And man, it's evident through your words and your heart that it is important. And for the youth pastor listening to this, I hope that you learned something. I hope that you're inspired to go out and maybe change the way you think about fundraising, or maybe it just sparks the ideas to start flowing on your next fundraiser that you have coming up, maybe before summer or maybe this upcoming fall. Either way, Micah, thank you again. Great conversation. And for everybody listening to this, we hope you have a great week, and we will see you next week.